Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Awaken to Torah. Today's Torah portion is Ki Tisa, or Shemot, Exodus chapter 30, verse 11 through chapter 24, chapter 34, verse 35. This Torah portion, Ki Tisa, is filled with so much. I hope I can get this done in 10 or 12 minutes, but it is so much. We might go a little bit longer than we normally do today. Okay, the Torah portion begins in Exodus chapter 30, verse 11, and it talks about the half shekel for the sanctuary. Everyone was commanded to come and basically give a half shekel for an atonement. Every one of the children of Israel. So a half shekel for the tabernacle, but also to make an atonement for themselves. I know a lot of Messianics maybe don't like to hear that we have to give some money. But from time to time we actually have to. I know a lot of them will say, well, there's no priesthood anymore, and so on and so forth, so who am I going to pay my tithes to? And I mean, it's just excuses. One thing that we need to understand is when we're giving to the Father, just as the children of Israel were giving to the Father through Moses and Aaron. It doesn't matter who is receiving them. It just matters that you're being obedient to what the Father has commanded you to do. So I'll leave that alone there. Not go into Hezekiah, how you robbed me in your tithes and offerings. We won't do that today. But just know that it was a commandment that we bring a half shekel for the tabernacle, but more so for an atonement for each one of us. Then in verse 17 of chapter 30, it was the bronze basin, or the laver. If you had a picture of the wilderness tabernacle, you would have the Ark of the Covenant, then you would have the table of showbread, the menorah, inside the holies of holies and the holy place, and then outside of that, before you go into the holy place, there would have been a laver, a wash basin. It had a base and a bowl on the top, and the priests were commanded to wash their hands and their feet before they entered into the holy place, and if they didn't, they were killed. I mean, it was a very stringent regulation placed by the Father that He wanted them to wash their hands and their feet before they came into the holy place. Chapter 30, verse 22, he starts talking about the anointing oil and the incense, and he gives the exact way that the anointing oil and the incense were to be made. A lot of people say, well, why don't we make that same anointing oil now, and why don't we make those same incense now? It's because the Father strictly forbids us from making that anointing oil, strictly forbids us from making those incense. It's just, if we do, we are cut off from among the people. It's just something that the Father has strictly forbidden us from doing. Only the priests should do this, and when the new temple is reestablished, we'll see that take place again, I'm sure. But until that point, we are forbidden from making these anointing oil and incense. The anointing oil, I mean, everything was to be anointed with it. All of the temple furnishings were to be anointed with it. The temple itself was to be anointed with it. The children of Aaron were to be anointed with it. Aaron was to be anointed with it. And anything that touched those things that had been anointed with this oil was made holy. Powerful stuff. Very, very powerful stuff. To absolve us of sin and to make us holy and righteous before the Father. There is a very specific reason why He commanded that these things not be made anymore. So I won't go into a big teaching on that. We'll go to Exodus chapter 31, verse 1. Bezalel and Ohilab. Sorry, I can't hardly say that word. But they were commanded to make these furnishings because they were skilled in the art of wood and brass and gold and silver. They were what we would call an architect now, or a designer. They were very skilled in what their trade was. And not only them, but the Father said that there was other men as well that he would send. So all of these things that the Father had commanded Moses to make, there were people already in the company of Israel that had the skill to make these things. So Moses wouldn't have to worry about who was going to make what and how this was going to get made, and would he have to hire somebody to come and do it. The skill was already there for these things to be made that the Father commanded him to make. And then in verse 12, the Father again stresses the importance of the Sabbath. He talks about all of these things. I mean, this goes back over the last two Torah portions into this Torah portion. He said, above all, we're to remember His Sabbath. Above all, to remember His Sabbath, because His Sabbath would be a sign between Himself and His people. We're to observe this forever throughout all of our generations. We could go into a big teaching on the Sabbath and how it's got changed and so on and so forth. But as you know, this is just a Torah tidbit. A Torah portion synopsis. So we're going to have to run through this pretty quick. But it's very, very important that if we claim to be the children of the living Elohim, the Elohim of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, we need to understand that His Sabbath is most important above all. In verse 18, it talks about the two tablets of the covenant that the Father had written with His own finger. Of course, we know that Moses brought the two tablets down when the Father told him to come down off the mountain, and the children of Israel were in debauchery. They had made a golden calf, and Moses broke the tablets at the foot of the mountain. In verse 1 was the commandment to leave Sinai. The commandment to leave Sinai was, get these people out of here. I don't want them around here anymore. I'm going to remain here, and you people just go. And Moses once again pleads with the Father, and tells him, remove my name from your book. If you're just going to send us out without your presence, then just remove my name from your book. And the Father listens to Moses again, just as He had listened to him when the Father wanted to destroy all of Israel. He spared their lives because Moses pleaded with him. And now the Father agrees with Moses that he will go with them and be their Elohim, and they will be His people. In verse 7, the tent outside the camp. The camp was all set up, and Moses had the tent placed off away from the camp, and he would go to the tent of meeting, and when he would enter into the door of the tent of meeting, a cloud would come down on the tent, and Yahweh would speak with Moses face to face, as a friend speaks to another friend. And when he would come out of the tent, his face would shine, and he would speak with the children of Israel and reveal to them everything that the Father had spoken to him, and then he would cover his face again until the next time he went into the tent. verse 12 is when Moses makes the intercession that, he doesn't want to leave Sinai without the presence of the Father being with him. And the Father agrees and tells Moses, not only is he going to go with him, he's going to deliver all of these other nations into his hand, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Amalekites, and so on and so forth, that all of these people are going to be destroyed as he sends them forth, because he's going to go with them and do war on their behalf. Sorry, I have a little stuffed up nose. And then Moses goes back up into the mountain in verse 1 of chapter 34 and makes 2 new tablets. And this time he makes them. The first tablets that were written by the Father's own finger have now been destroyed. So Moses now has to make these new tablets again. In verse 10 of chapter 34, the covenant is renewed. The Father renews the covenant with the children of Israel. He's going to be their Elohim, and he's going to go with them, and he's going to protect them and lead them and guide them. In 34 verse 29, it talks about the shining of the face, which we kind of already went over. When Moses came down from the mountain the second time, his face shone with the glory from the Father, after he had seen his hinder parts. So the people were actually afraid because his face glowed, is the way that I interpret that. And he would, of course, after he got done delivering what the Father told him to deliver to them, he veiled himself, and I guess remained veiled until he went to the tabernacle of the tent of meeting and went inside, and then he would unveil himself and speak with the Father face to face again, come out, deliver it to the children of Israel, then veil himself again. That's pretty much the end of that Torah portion. You will see when you read this Torah portion, and actually this is my favorite. If I have to pick out a favorite Torah portion, this is my favorite Torah portion of all. I use it quite often when I'm teaching, because it's such a teaching lesson about us being a stiff-necked people and hardening our hearts against the Father and doing our own will, and everything was good for a little while, but as soon as things get rough, we turn and go back to our like a dog returning to his vomit. We made false gods and so on and so forth. It's amazing when we look at everything that's happened in this Torah portion. The high priest Aaron made a cow. And the way he describes it is, well, you know how these people are. They're a stiff-necked people, and they told me they didn't know what had happened to you. That for all they knew, you could have went up in the mountains and died, and they needed a god. So I told them to give me their golden earrings and all their gold, and they brought it to me, and I threw it in the fire, and out popped this cow. This cow just magically popped out of the fire. Of course, we know that Moses took it and burned it and ground it into dust and poured it in the river and made the children of Israel drink of it. Bitter waters. There's such a great multitude of messages in this one Torah portion. A person could spend a lifetime trying to understand it and dissect it. I hope you spend some time in this Torah portion this week, and that the Father blesses you in your understanding, that He grows you in ways that we can't even comprehend. Thanks for tuning in to Awaken to Torah. We hope you've enjoyed this Torah portion. Shalom, shalom. See you next time.